Hello. We're going to do the prototype model for the phone stand. The equipment you're going to need will be some sort of cutting device like a craft knife or a pair of scissors, a ruler to measure. If you're using a craft knife and you have them, you should be using a safety rule and a cutting mat. In school, I'm going to use the tri-square to get to 90 degrees, but you could use one of the little set squares from your drawing equipment if you have that to get to 90 degree. The piece of card needs to be 150 millimeters long by 75 millimeters wide, and you need 2 of them. Right, once you have your pieces of card cut to size, this is what we're going to effectively do. We are going to make use of a halving joint where a slot goes halfway across the piece of card. The slot is cut so it is the same width as the card, so the card will slide in. By having 2 slots, done the same, halfway across, same width as the card, halfway across, same width as the card, we can interlock the slots to make our phone stand. And the design is such that the phone can stand on it and securely. You have a couple of decisions to make about sizing. This little ledge here needs to be long enough so that it supports the phone. This part here needs to be tall enough so that the phone will sit at an angle. If you play with these sizes, you will alter the angle the phone sits at. If I use my ruler to represent the desk, then at the moment it will sit at this angle. If I increase this length, move this back, it will start to tip the phone further back. The same thing if I start to increase how far out that goes. So there's a balancing act. How much do you want to hold the phone? How much do you need at the back of the phone to support it? The further you have this bit sticking down, the further back the phone will lean. However, the more sticks out there, the less there is at the back here to support the phone. So you, as I say, have a balancing act to do with that. For my designs, using my phone, I have gone for 15 millimeters and 30 millimeters. I found they work for my phone. So I'm going to aim for 15 millimeters and 30 millimeters. So first one, pencil, steel rule. I can measure 15 millimeters away and make a line. I'm going to use a tri-square to get the line at 90 degrees to the edge, 90 degrees. So I can transfer that line all the way across the card. As I said, if you needed to, you could put your set square against the edge and use the 90 degree of the set square to get the line across. It's important you do that so that when the 2 slots together, they don't end up going at a funny angle and it'll make it sit funny on your desk. I now need to work out the width of the card. I could measure the width of the card, 2 millimeters, and then transfer it onto there, but I found in practice that tends to be a little bit wider than it needs to be. So instead, I'm going to take the card and move it until it just hides that line. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. So I've slid it up so it just hides the line. Having done that, I can then use my pencil to make a mark on the other side, and again using the tri-square, draw in the parallel line. I need this joint to be a halving joint, so half of 75 is 37.5, so I can just mark that line in. And so that I don't get confused later, I tend to shade the part that I want to get rid of, the bit I need to remove. I'm going to do the other bit of card, measure and mark it out before I start cutting. This one, I wanted 30 millimeters, so from the bottom of the card I'm going to measure 30 millimeters. Again, with my tri-square, transfer that line across the card at 90 degrees to the edge. And again, with the other bit of card, I shall use it to hide the line and just make a mark there. And with the tri-square, my 90 degree line going across there. If I measure halfway across, 75, half of 75, 37.5, and again I'm going to shade the piece of card so I know which bit I'm getting rid of. If you have scissors now, you now need to cut the 2 slots. Make sure you're cutting inside the slots, not outside. You want this slot to be a little bit narrower than the card. You can always adjust it to make it wider. If you make it too wide, you cannot make it narrower. So a pair of scissors, cutting down the line on the waist side, the bit I want to get rid of till I get to the end. Same on the other piece. And then if I lift this piece of card up, I can just snip it off with the scissors. If I've done that properly, either the card will slide in, or as mine does, it slides in as a tight fit. If it's too tight, you can just trim a little bit off. So that was with a pair of scissors. With a craft knife, there's usually a serrated bit on the handle for your finger to rest on, opposite the sharp blade. Don't cut yourself. Always cut away from yourself, not towards yourself. Always have the blade, instead of straight at the card, have it at an angle, and don't expect to cut through the card in one go. Because I'm cutting towards somewhere, I'm going to start from there and cut away so that I'm cutting away from the part I need to keep. If I cut towards it, there is a risk I will go too far and damage my work. The safety ruler has this gutter for your fingers, and the ramps either side stop the knife getting to that. So I can use the safety ruler against my line. Again, I'm going to cut more on the waist side than the good side, so I make the slot a little bit narrower. And I won't be able to cut through in a one go. It will take a few cuts. Move it over to do the other one. Really does work best when you have a sharp craft knife. If your craft knife is blunt, it's going to be hard work. Like the pair of scissors, I can poke out the bit I don't want, and I can use a craft knife cutting away from myself to just trim that bit off. If I've cut that right, it should be a tight fit in the card. The 2 bits will now interlock because they're the halving joint. And now, there is my model done. And you can see how the phone sits on it. If you have some other card, you could cut cards to make some ears. You could cut holes in it to make a logo or a shape, maybe a Nike shape or an Apple iPhone shape. You might be able to cut a hole in the base of it where a charge lead would go through. Mine's got the charge lead there, so I could have a hole going through to show where the charge lead was. You might be able to hang pieces off so that you can put cables on, headphones. You might be able to make a little box at the back as a storage container for other things.